Hello, friends. Welcome to our powerhouse.
You're in the powerhouse now. Our powerhouse of faith and hope.
Our powerhouse of goodness and love. We're a house of strong women.
Active women who greet you with hearts as wide as the world.
You're part of it. Can you feel it? Can you see it?
See the goodness. Be the goodness. Changing hearts. Touching lives.
God's goodness, the Holy Spirit, is the fire in us. The gospel of Jesus lives in us.
Come join us in the sacred powerhouse of faith, hope, and love.
The greatest of these is love. You're in the house now. The powerhouse of the Sisters of Notre Dame, Dana Moore.
Hello, everyone. I'm Carol Williams. I'm here with Sister Marianne Barnhorn, my co-host, to kick off this year's Partners in Action. Hi, Marianne.
Hi, Carol. Hello, friends.
It's wonderful to be back to celebrate Partners in Action when the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur highlight the ministries of the past year and the support of all of you who make it possible. And what a year it's been.
2020 was a year that few will forget. But you know what? The challenges of 2020 haven't stopped our sisters. Our guiding light is our mission, to go out with hearts as wide as the world and see the good.
It's a beautiful and powerful vocation, and I think we're all inspired by it. We're going to hear a lot about that, but first,
Sister Carol Lichtenberg is here to lead us in an opening prayer.
Let us pull our attention in to this God of ours, who is the source of all goodness. Oh God, we are so blessed with goodness in your creation, in those who love us, and in the daily abundance of your graces and blessings. We pray that you grant us deep places of attunement to your gifts and to your call to be always and everywhere grateful. Today we ask especially for your goodness to be showered on those who have been affected by the coronavirus. Grant us all healing from the effects of the pandemic. Bless our virtual gathering today. Continue to bless the ministries of the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur, and bless those who generously support these ministries. We make these prayers through the intercession of Saint Julie. Amen.
Thank you, Sister Carol. What a beautiful blessing to start things off.
And for the perfect follow-up, Sister Kathy Harmon, the Ohio Provincial Leader, is here to share a message about Notre Dame's spirituality and what See the Good means for the sisters in their daily lives.
Hello. What a delight to be with all of you today. We, the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur, live by a spirituality grounded in the goodness of God, a spirituality given to us by our foundress, St. Julie Billiart. Living from this spirituality, we see God's goodness everywhere, from the tiniest ant crawling through the grass to the biggest galaxy spinning through the cosmos, to the light shining from the face of every human being. We spread God's goodness everywhere by being the power and presence of God in people's lives, by holding in our hearts the needs and hopes, the joys and sorrows of all people, and by working with others to change structures and systems that prevent people from obtaining the free and full life God desires for them. We are God's goodness everywhere, through a way of life that places persons above possessions, through a way of relating that embraces the dignity and value of every person race, and nation, through a way of acting that changes people's lives, both locally and globally. To see, to spread, to be the goodness of God in the world, that is our mission.
Thank you, Sister Kathy, for such an inspirational message. We have wonderful examples ahead of the Notre Dame mission, which you so beautifully described. We have a group of sisters from around the country discussing some of the ways they've continued their ministries, and sometimes even grown them to meet the growing needs of the COVID storm. And we have an update on how sisters in Brazil are continuing the work of Sister Dorothy Stang, the Angel of the Amazon.
We're also going to talk about our Live the Good volunteer program and share an update on Clean Water for Life. And we'll listen in as two sisters dialogue about how, in very different ways, each of them has carried out the mission of St. Julie.
You know, Marianne, hearing those stories makes me appreciate how resilient the sisters are.
We are. That's what's needed now for us to answer the call of our founder, St. Julie, to teach and serve, especially the needs of the most underserved.
Before moving on, we want to give a big thanks to our presenting sponsor for today's event, Fort Washington Investment Advisors, who have been major supporters of the sisters for many years. And thank you to all of our sponsors who have helped make this 2021 Partners in Action possible.
And thanks to each and every one of you, our friends, volunteers, and donors, for joining us today and for your support.
You know, Marianne, I was surprised to learn that the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur don't receive financial support from any diocese.
You're right, Carol. That's one reason the gifts of friends are so important.
Absolutely. And you'll hear more about how to donate later in the program. But let me point out now that you can use the donate button on your screen to make a contribution at any time. It doesn't take long to make a gift, and you'll continue to hear the program. Now, I know that volunteers are really important to the sisters' ministries. It sounds like more people than ever are stepping up during COVID.
They are. One way people are getting involved is with our Live the Good program. Live the Good is a growing community of volunteers who share the Notre Dame mission of faith in action. We have programs in Cincinnati, Phoenix, Chicago, Baltimore, and Kermit, West Virginia. COVID has made meeting in person difficult, so Live the Good volunteers had to find a new way to help. In Cincinnati, they had a brown bag lunch drive to help with record food insecurity. They made lunches at home, then dropped them off to be delivered. The initial goal was 1,000 lunches. Do you know how many they actually made?
Well, I can't guess, but I wouldn't be surprised if it was more than expected.
They made over 3,000 lunches. The volunteers were just happy to be able to help.
And that's one example of how goodness is being multiplied.
Yes, from person to person and around the world. We know you want to hear how we've been able to keep working with all the COVID constraints. Let's listen in on this conversation between some of our sisters to find out more.
Hi there, Liz and Nancy and Joan. It's great to see all of you, and I'm grateful for the opportunity to connect in this way, although I'd much rather be together with you around a single table. But you know, I have been just in awe as I look at how our sisters around the world have been able to respond with such nimbleness during this time of the pandemic. You know, they're truly daughters of St. Julie because she had to be nimble also in her time with the widespread illness, the war, and the violence that she and her sisters encountered. I'm curious, what stories, what have you heard from our sisters about how they have been able to be nimble in this time of the pandemic?
Chris, I think you're right to use the word nimble. It is the word she used. I think of Judy Clemens, who is, as you know, the chair of the board for the Notre Dame Mission Volunteers. They're scattered all over the country, 25 different sites. And it's just amazing. She hasn't left our building like the rest of us, except to go out for groceries and go to the pharmacy. But she is managing to hold it all together. And she's been in touch with all 25 site directors. Things are moving ahead. I said to her, how do you do it? And she said, well, we have reimagined what we've been doing before. And reimagining, that takes creativity.
Sisters, here in Arizona, we're also seeing that flexibility and nimbleness and goodness bubble up. We're finding all kinds of creative ways to continue our ministry in spite of the restrictions of COVID. Also, we used to take food and clothing to the border for the people waiting to cross, and we can't go across anymore because of COVID restrictions. We have discovered here in Phoenix an ecumenical group that has a storage unit on the Arizona side of the border. And volunteers here collect and donate food and clothing, and other volunteers, ourselves included, take this to the storage unit on the Arizona side, and then the Mexican Catholic Charities people come and get it and take it to their shelters. So again, we found ways to continue doing what we've done, but in a new way.
Such collaboration. And Joan, I know you have a lifetime of experience in education. Where have you seen this kind of nimbleness during the pandemic in education?
I'm seeing our teachers and sisters in education working harder than ever. At St. Ursula's, where I was the principal for 28 years, I see the cars outside at 6:30 in the morning. I see them there at 5:30, 6 o'clock at night. It's like that in all our Notre Dame schools in Baltimore. And I was discussing with Sister Ruth Ann Bettinghouse, who teaches science at Mount Notre Dame High School in Cincinnati, and she's teaching both virtually and students present. The preparation time for this kind of teaching is really very time consuming. And and all of our sisters and our teachers are really committed because they're invested in their students' learning. And then we have some cases like Sarah Sabinski out in Watts in the Los Angeles area. Sarah is teaching 45 special ed students on different levels. And she's adding on bilingual students too. This is a mammoth amount of preparation time.
Yes, Joan, we've seen people learning new ways to be in ministry and new ways to be teachers. Sister Ann Flanagan is a spiritual director, and she's been using Zoom, and it is really working. It's working out just fine. And then we have Marilyn Kerber. This idea of using virtual education is nothing new for her. She's been working with seminarians all over the country, giving courses from the University of Dayton. So many people are being reached.
I work in the pastoral outreach service, and I've been doing more of that lately. And it's the same parish where I was the principal. The parishioners have really stepped up. They're bringing food, they're bringing clothing, they're bringing gift cards, whatever is needed, they step up to the plate.
We understand the need to and the goodness of being able to continue, and we also realize that there are so many new ways to serve. And then we have Carol Lichtenberg. She was our provincial, and she's free now to use her financial background to help other people, especially nonprofit boards, where she serves there as consultant. So there's always one more need to be met, and there's always someone to reach out to that need.
I've seen that there are some circumstances beyond COVID where sisters are finding new ways to minister to needs. Sister Sandra Price in Nicaragua has told me that after Hurricane Iota last November, she had to buy a power saw so that people could cut down the local trees in order to rebuild their homes. And the sisters there are also helping people find seeds to plant and food. In Africa, COVID presents some challenges beyond the usual challenges they have there. They have a lot of newly professed sisters. And for them to make 3 made final vows and 5 made their first vows, Sister Jerry Bolson in Kenya has told me that they had to postpone the ceremony and then they had to move it outside to comply with the quarantine restrictions. So they were able to do it after all and found a way. And so we're seeing this outpouring of goodness all over our Notre Dame world.
And they were able to live stream that vow ceremony from Kenya. So our sisters from around the world got to see this and participate in the vow ceremony. And I don't know if that would have happened if we weren't in the middle of a pandemic. You know, the ability to rejoice together is just so energizing. You know, one of the things I really appreciate about being a sister of Notre Dame de Namur, and I've seen it in our sisters all around the world, is that I think it's made me more attuned to seeing goodness, to seeing it in the people around me and the situations around me.
You're right, Chris. And, you know, during these months of COVID, I can almost feel the web of care that has developed.
People are realizing that they're not victims. Each of us can do something.
Yes, God is good all the time, and we can show it in our words and actions to one another.
Absolutely. What an uplifting conversation. Thank you all for making the time. And I look forward to when we can have a nice cup of coffee around a table together soon.
It's great to hear how the sisters are seeing the good through all that's been thrown at them.
And it isn't just words. The Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur really are women of action.
We're going to hear about more women of action in our next story that began decades ago and that continues today.
That's right, Carol. The work that Sister Dorothy Stang began in Brazil in the 1960s is still going strong, though it's been 16 years since she died. Here's more on Dot's story and how her legacy lives on today.
Dorothy Stang was a sister of Notre Dame de Namur who began a ministry in Brazil more than 50 years ago. A native of Dayton, Ohio, Sister Dorothy carried our mission of education deep into the Amazon rainforest, focusing her efforts on the poor farmers and their families who lived there. It was her dream that people could live self-sufficient lives and use the land in sustainable ways. That put Sister Dorothy on a collision course with wealthy landowners who opposed her work. They thought if they killed her, they could stop her. But they were wrong. They didn't know that her story would inspire people to work even harder for basic human rights and environmental sustainability in the Amazon. Sister Joanne Depwick spent nearly all of her religious life in ministry to the poor in Brazil, living and working alongside Dorothy Stang. She met Sandra Araujo Santos, whom she calls one of Dot's prodigies, when she was still a girl in Anapu. The two connected recently on Zoom.
Sandra, this is so great seeing you. And you were very young when you first met Dorothy, weren't you?
I was 11 years old when I met Sister Dorothy for the first time. My family came to Anapu because we were migrant seeking for land.
Did Dorothy have any kind of influence on you and dedicating your life to the struggle of the people?
My family didn't have a land to work and live on. And Dorothy, with the community where we lived, helped us to find our land where we lived for 20 years. When I got to the age of 18, Sister Dorothy invited me to join the pastoral team to accompany the communities. At that time, there were 30 communities along the Trans-Amazonian Highway. And we walked in for long distances between communities to visit the people. I didn't know if I was going to be a sister, but she thought I was going to be one. And then I continued day by day, seeing the good things that she did. And I wanted to do too. But I didn't think I was going to work with the land issue because I knew that was very dangerous. And then in 1997, I began my formation with the Sisters of Notre Dame. And I'm here working with the land issue.
Your specialty is agrarian law, right, Sandra?
Right. I graduate in law, and then I have a specialty in agrarian law. I am a part of the pastoral team, the land commission, and we accompany the communities in their struggle. And sometimes, yes, we have to go into court because people, the big ones who think they're the owner of the land, they get, how do I say this? They get people, the communities into court. So they need somebody to defend them.
I get impressed with not only you, but the younger sisters, all of you. You're all trying to carry on one way or another Dorothy's spirit.
We continue doing the same work as Sister Dorothy did, and the Sisters of Notre Dame have been doing during these more than 50 years of presence in Brazil. We work with the farmers, the communities, the poor communities who are struggling to live and to take care of the environment and the forest and the life itself. So now we work with education, not schools, but popular educations. We try to meet the people, young people, women and men, and we have these conversations about life, trying to help them to face and fight for their rights, because the violence continues in Anapu, in Breves, in Oiapoque, anywhere where the sisters are.
So I would say, Sandra, that maybe we just end up by saying that Dorothy's memory is very much still alive.
Her memory is very alive. As I have said before, she is alive in our own actions and other people's actions in this world, not only in Brazil, but in the world.
It's so good to get that update and hear some of Sister Sandra's stories. You know, Carol, we have 5 young Brazilian sisters there now.
It's such a powerful story. Sister Dorothy's legacy lives on. And we're going to take a brief break now to hear another song from the Corryville Choir and to give you a chance to use that donate button if you choose. But we'll be right back with more stories, so don't go away.
Jesus, be with me today. Jesus, teach me how to pray. Bless my family, bless me too. Keep me safe in all I do. And when I am tucked in tight, keep me safe all through the night.
We know a lot of friends and partners are interested in the Clean Water for Life project, active in 9 villages in Nigeria and the Congo. The project provides electricity and clean water to the communities and their schools, hospitals, and clinics. These are places where our sisters live and work, where clean water, such a basic need, is still a challenge.
Electricity is needed to pump water, so getting electricity is one of the first steps. The Clean Water Project installs a solar panel system that collects energy from the sun and converts it into electricity. Batteries store that electricity, and purification equipment cleans and treats the water. A satellite dish provides internet access. You know, Carol, electricity and internet access can be used for things besides water treatment. So the systems are improving the lives of our sisters and these communities in multiple ways.
It's an amazing program. Clean Water for Life has recently been doing upgrades in the village of Palende, where the sisters have a large school and medical facility. They replaced an old system that caught and retained rainwater with a new one that includes a well, a pump, water storage tanks, and purification and control equipment. An older electrical system has been improved too, making it easier to add solar panels and upgrading to more efficient lithium-ion batteries that are maintenance-free.
These clean water systems have been using ultraviolet light for water treatment, but engineers that worked with the sisters decided recently that the technology isn't really sufficient. So they developed a new system that combines ultrafiltration with ultraviolet. The first system is being installed at Lemfu, which is one of the sisters' oldest communities in Africa. Today, Lemfu includes a convent, a large primary and secondary schools with dormitories and a hospital. If the new system is successful there, these new water treatment systems will be installed at all of our sisters' sites in the Congo.
So the work continues, and Clean Water for Life continues to make a big difference for the people and the sisters in these small villages where getting clean water has been such a challenge. Next up, we're going to hear from Sisters Donna Jurek and Therese Del Genio. The sisters have recently reconnected in Cincinnati after years of ministry in different areas of the country. Sister Donna at St. Edward's University in Austin, Texas, and Sister Therese in Chicago. Let's listen in.
Therese, it's so good to be with you.
Thanks, Donna. I'm glad we have a little time to spend together this morning.
Well, and our lives have been so different, it'll be interesting to try to make comparisons out of them.
We've had very different experiences and venues, but I think both of us have tried really hard to bring the spirituality of St. Julie, the goodness of God, to different places and different communities.
You were in Chicago for over 17 years, and you started a program with the homeless there. Can you share a little bit about that?
Sure, I'd love to. We started Southwest Chicago PADS in order to try to help the people who were homeless get taken care of 7 days a week. So we were able to provide a place, a meal, and a bed for overnight. So once we were able to give the guests their basic needs, then we were able to help provide social services and help them move towards some of their goals and dreams of recovery from addiction, employment, housing, and even family reunification. And by the time I left after 17 years, we had over 750 volunteers.
But how important it must have been to the volunteers, too, and what they must have learned and given.
They learned a lot from the guests, so they were our primary teachers. But the guests learned a lot, too. Let me tell you this priceless story. It was on a Holy Thursday that an agency donated about 95 plastic buckets with handles and a couple of cases of candy. And so I said to the guests, I need some volunteers to help me make Easter baskets. And as usual, with my harebrained ideas, they rolled their eyes. And I said, no, it's not for you, it's for the children of Sukasa. And Sukasa is a place in Chicago for families from Central America who've experienced torture and violence. Well, said the guys, why didn't you say it was for the children? Of course we'll help. So they washed their hands and they colored eggs and they filled the baskets with grass and the candy. And then they said, well, can't we add a little more? So they donated toothbrushes and toothpaste till it was brimming full. And they thought they had finished. And I said, no. the job's not over, guys. I need you to go with me to Sukasa to deliver them. Look how many there are. So they agreed to go, but let me tell you, these big burly guys were shaking in their boots. But once we were there and the sisters were explaining the history of Sukasa and what they did, one by one, the children came down the stairs and into the room where we were, and the sisters introduced them one by one to our guests. And our guests' hearts melted. So they began to reach into their pockets to take out what we had given them personally, a sandwich bag full of jelly beans that they could have with them for the day, and gave those to the children, even though they had already put candy in the baskets.
And what they must have learned from all of this, and how Notre Dame it is.
That's true. But it was a hard lesson for them because as we were leaving, I turned to all of them and I said, thank you for being so kind and generous. And Dennis got all upset with me and he said, sister, stop that. You make us sound like we're the good guys. And I said, but that's just it, Dennis. You are. And I imagine you.
But when I went to St. Edward's, I knew I was not only at a Holy Cross Brothers institution, but that my mission as a Sister of Notre Dame and theirs were wonderfully compatible. We had about 2,000 students when I went to St. Edward's, but most of them could not really afford, or certainly could not afford, full tuition. And many of them, particularly the students that came from the migrant camps, could not afford any tuition. But the university was devoted to that. So we spent a lot of time trying to figure out how you balance students who cannot pay with students who can pay. And that reminded me of St. Julie, who always said she had to have schools where the children paid to go to school in order to have the poor schools. But it was a very, on a higher education level, a very similar needing to balance those economic realities. And so that's what we did. It worked. And by the time I left, we had 4,000 students and we had the diversity. So that balance created a reality where each group learned from the other.
That is so inspiring. And I suspect St. Julie is really happy about that.
Well, let me tell you how that worked a little bit, just with a story. Now, it was a story that brought tears to my eyes. This is my first orientation class, and I'm meeting with the migrant students and their parents, and we have a keynote speaker. And Ketta had been a student in the migrant program. She is now the keynote speaker. She not only finished the migrant program, which was heavily the first year, but she graduated from St. Edward's. She had gone on and gotten a doctorate in chemistry.
Whoa.
She now worked for a major research corporation and was still devoted to her family and to the migrant community. It tells you that education is important to the individual, but also important to the family and to the community from which they come.
It's a worldwide endeavor. Really.
It's a worldwide endeavor. And we have lots, you've contributed to that, and so have I, in different but very Notre Dame ways.
That's the truth.
I really wish we had a lot more time to talk, Therese. This is much too short. There's too much more to learn from both our sides.
Maybe we could have lunch later on together this week.
That sounds great. We'll do that.
Thanks. Thanks, Donna.
Thank you.
Such different ministries, Marianne, but their dedication to the communities they serve and to Notre Dame spirituality is the same.
As Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur, we really are grounded in those two things, spirituality and service. I think that really shows in the stories and conversations that we've shared today.
I think so too.
That same spirituality is our gift to you, our friend. Now, Kevin Manley, Director of Development, is here to share a few words.
What a great program today. I'm inspired, as always, to hear how the sisters are living their mission, and I hope you are too. The goodness of God that the sisters talk about is changing lives. Sometimes it's neighbors who are hungry or homeless, being provided food, clothing, shelter, and the opportunity to see themselves in a new way. Sometimes it's a migrant or immigrant family receiving an education that yesterday seemed out of reach. Sometimes it's a village in Africa, Brazil, or Haiti, finding help to meet their basic needs like clean water, food, or work. No matter the place or circumstance, our sisters are changing lives by seeing the good. Your gift to the sisters allows their ministries to go on. Your generosity provides the support the sisters need to make a more loving, equitable, and sustainable world. The sisters' gift to you is the gift of spirituality. It's the gift of God's goodness finding a home in your heart too. I hope you'll embrace that gift and cherish it as I do. I want to help the sisters, and I hope you will join me. I would now like to introduce Mike Caudell, Chair of the Development Advisory Board, to tell you how to do that.
Thank you, Kevin. The stories you heard in today's program reflect the incredibly valuable work the sisters are doing. I feel honored and privileged to participate in supporting the Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur. The sisters bring out the best in us. They help us understand the important role we play in seeing the good. With your donation today, you join me in becoming a member of our Partners in Action Society. Those of us who are already members know how rewarding it is to be part of something bigger, to be part of a powerhouse that provides service and a connection to God's goodness to people far and wide. So now we're requesting what is needed most: financial support to enable the sisters to continue their work. Remember, the sisters don't receive support from any diocese. Your gift of $500 will allow someone like Sister Therese to continue her work with the homeless for 2 weeks. That's about $42 a month. To make a bigger impact, you could consider pledging this amount for 5 years. If you're able, consider giving a gift of $1,000. That's about $84 a month, or the cost of a latte a day, to keep Sister Sandra working in Brazil for 3 months. Some of you may be in a position to give more, or maybe you're part of a foundation. If so, please consider a generous gift of $5,000, or even pledging this amount for 5 years. Your gift will support a sister for almost half a year and have a far-ranging impact in allowing the sisters to do even more. If these levels aren't suitable for you for any reason, please give whatever you can. We truly appreciate whatever support you provide. The donate button will take you directly to the page where you can pay by credit card or make a pledge to be paid over time. Either way, you'll be making a difference. Sharing our blessings with the sisters, we become a part of real change in our communities, especially for those most in need. Thank you for spending time with us today, and thank you for your donations. As Partners in Action, together, we are changing the world.
As lovers of all God's people and all creation, you too see the goodness of God. You too spread the goodness of God. You too are the goodness of God. We could not fulfill our mission as Sisters of Notre Dame de Namur without you. You who, like us, have hearts as wide as the world. In the name of all the sisters, I now ask God's blessing on you. May your hearts be filled with the goodness of God. May you spread that goodness everywhere.
Thank you for joining us and for all your support.
May you be truly blessed and realize the goodness of God in your life.
Thank you.
And God bless you.